cosmic cliffs on a glittering night sky, the Carina Nebula, vibrant rings of Jupiter, the neon and fiery Cartwheel Galaxy. These magical images from the Webb telescope arrived in July as a galactic antidote to feelings of powerlessness, even hopelessness, that dotted the summer of 2022. In contrast to regularly occurring updates detailing atrocities in Ukraine, unsettling court decisions at home, and the seemingly endless indications that our country could be falling apart at the seams, the evidence from the edges of space were awe-inspiring, reminding us of all we don't yet know. These photos are gorgeous, appearing to be the work of a talented artist. They are also breathtaking in the context they create for us in our expansive existence. Even before we had these pictures, we knew there was more out there than what we could see. Seeing them affirmed the call of our sacred and ancient tradition to strive for what we know can be, no matter how far out of reach it may feel. Getting lost in the possibilities inspired by these images is humbling and also empowering. We are at once the teeny tiniest little specks, and yet we have seen farther out than ever before, pushing the boundaries of what we can do. We think about what is possible, we strive for what can be, even when we can't touch the outcome. And sometimes, when we're lucky, we catch a glimpse of something unknown and altogether awesome. We need these moments of illuminated hope, especially in a time when hopelessness feels more logical and more accessible. It's not every day that the universe opens up before us, shifting our gaze up and out into this unknown wow of all that is bigger than we are, which I sometimes call God. Most of the time we are on our own, left to wade through the muck and mire of our earthly orbits. So what do we do when the world makes us want to scream, or throw things, or check out entirely, when we feel light years away from the wonders of the universe? Much of the liturgy and poetry for this day, for Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world, invites us to celebrate new beginnings, to take stock of our abounding blessings, and to figure out how we will manifest a new and improved version of ourselves. Soon our services will be over, the echoes of our shofar blasts will fade, and we will still be left to navigate a planet in peril, a country divided, democracy at risk, widespread poverty, bigotry, anti-Semitism, threats to personal freedoms, and, well, we'll be right back to feeling hopeless. What to do? There are myriad responses, some healthy, some less so. There's a tool provided intentionally for this time of year that I'll offer today, one with which you might already be familiar. It's called teshuvah. It is, if you can imagine it, figuratively emblazoned on a neon flashing sign right now, the first of this 10-day period from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, these days of personal, spiritual boot camp. It is the word of the week, so to speak. Teshuvah has no perfect translation into English, so you may have heard it translated as repentance, or turning, or return. The great sage Maimonides distilled the process most clearly almost 900 years ago into the following steps. First, recognize a harmful behavior or action and feel regret for what you've done. Second, verbally confess how you've erred. Third, reconcile with the person you've hurt, knowing that it may be more than a one-time conversation. And finally, resolve never to repeat the action and follow through when a situation presents itself. To do this work requires that we let our guard down, to allow a vulnerability many of us find uncomfortable. In our personal work this week, we may find ourselves having to confront people we have hurt, knowingly or not, by word or by deed. How will we hear them out without defensiveness, and then begin the process of teshuvah? And how will we respond to our loved ones who have broken our hearts when they approach us in search of return? This is the big personal stuff of the week ahead, so that when we meet again for Yom Kippur, we are ready to engage in the sacred and spiritual work of that day, having cared already for our personal relationships. Bear in mind that teshuvah asserts something else that is critical for this moment. The only person's behavior we can control is our own. Yes, the world may make us feel that others are letting us down. It is convenient and often satisfying, if a bit masochistic, to doom scroll on our cell phones or sink into the quicksand of news headlines while we continue to shoot poison darts with our words. For a very short time, this old routine of wallowing in grievances might feel satisfying, but it does not address our core problem. There is so much that is broken and in need of repair, so much that it feels overwhelming. Indeed, we cannot fix it all. Teshuvah reminds us that what we can control is what we put into the world. Teshuvah says to us, when the worries of the world seem overwhelming, start with yourself. This past July, the New York Times ran a segment called I Was Wrong, in which 8 opinion columnists revisited earlier pieces and explained why they had been wrong. In our age of hyperpartisanship and polarization, the introduction reads, when social media echo chambers incentivize digging in and doubling down, it's not easy to admit when you've done something wrong. It's not necessarily easy for Times opinion columnists to engage in public self-reproach, but we hope that in so doing, they can be models of how valuable it can be to admit when you get things wrong. Columnist Bret Stephens' piece, I Was Wrong About Trump Voters, caught my attention. Stephens names where he erred. On the surface, it was that he called appalling those who were not appalled by then-candidate Trump. But when Stephens continued to explore his behavior, he identified a deeper, more essential misstep. He names the question he should have asked but didn't. What were they seeing that I wasn't? When he finally made space for this question, long after the particular column had been published, he heard for the first time from people who he had essentially written off. He heard of their stories and struggles, the lived experiences of those who would cast their vote for then-candidate Trump. Stephens articulates what he did wrong and describes the damage it caused. This column is a public self-confession, and toward the end he demonstrates what he has learned and how he has changed. Teshuvah, start with ourselves. This reclaiming of personal control is empowering and contagious and hopeful. It can give us agency when we feel it the least but need it the most. And I love this reorientation of teshuvah as a proxy for hope, as long as we engage. Tikvah, or hope, in Hebrew, is all about connection. The middle 2 letters, kuf and vet, spell the word kav, or line segment, something that connects 2 points. Hope moves us forward towards something, reminding us that we are part of this much bigger we, and also that each of us is integrally important. Simply put, it takes all of us to create this we. Hope is one of the central threads in the fabric of Jewish living. It is the belief that things can be better than they are right now because we are here. As part of our calling as Jews is to do what we can to build a world that is more whole, more just, more loving, especially during these 10 days, Teshuvah is a tool we can't afford to neglect. And there is no shortage of uncertainty these days about things that range from the personal to the global. How will our children fare at school this year? How will the vaccines and antivirals allow us to continue to live with COVID-19? What will become of women's reproductive rights, of marriage equality, of our economy? What will our planet look like in a year, in 10 years, when our grandchildren inherit it from us? And most pressingly, have I done enough for even one of these questions to know that I am doing what I can to bring holiness into this world that is not yet whole? Here's one way that I have not. I have spent a lot of time worrying about my kids, about our kids. As I take stock of my actions, I am proud of what we are teaching and living here at Barnert. We really do offer our kids valuable tools and armor and connection that through Jewish learning and living, and all of this makes a meaningful difference. I haven't, though, gotten involved in our public school community or in understanding enough about how our Board of Education works or how local and national elections and policies impact curriculum and arts and accessibility. I am just starting to learn about how different the educational experience is in various communities throughout New Jersey, and how our energy will be needed to move us toward education equity. So here's an area of life that I already care about, both personally and civically, where Teshuvah offers me a path to figure out where I've missed the mark and how I can correct my behavior. And this feels like a connection to the version of hope that says that things can be better because I am here. This is the opportunity of the season for each of us to figure out where we can make our connection, choose where we might bring holiness into the world in a way that is rooted in purpose and engenders hope for us as we live. Where can we lean away from idle worrying and lean into purposeful action? Consider as one meaningful example the election this summer in Kansas, where access to reproductive health care was on the ballot for the first time since Roe was overturned by the Supreme Court. Amid a time of such national anxiety, of so many people reporting feeling powerless, individuals made the choice to act about something that mattered to them. Colleen Boding, age 73, a Catholic retiree who chose to volunteer in this election for the very first time, noted that she was determined to vote against the amendment despite listening to weekly anti-abortion pitches at her Catholic church. At first, she had been content to sit back and hope for the best. But as the campaign developed, she felt she had to get involved. So many people in Kansas and beyond thought this could not be done. One by one, individual people came together, decided this was important, and look what happened. It worked. They made their world a safer place. Through their endeavors, these individuals found connection and purpose and joy, and they also created hope, both for Kansans and for us. Rabbi Israel Salanter puts it another way in this teaching that comes all the way from 19th century Lithuania. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world, but I found it difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my country. When I found I couldn't change my country, I began to focus on my community. However, I discovered that I couldn't change the community, and so as I grew older, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realized that the only thing I can change is myself. But I've come to recognize that if long ago I had started with myself, then I could have made an impact on my family, and my family and I could have made an impact on our community, and that in turn could have changed the country, and we all, indeed, could have changed the world. Teshuvah helps us figure out how to start with ourselves, because like Rabbi Salanter explains, we can't try to fix it all. And like Colleen Boding, we also can't opt out. Teshuvah helps us find our direction as we give life to the hope that things can be better because we are here. Something brand new is going to happen tonight. NASA is attempting for the very first time to knock an asteroid off its course. In lieu of resigning to what even the brightest minds might find too big to tackle, catapulting space debris headed our way, NASA is trying out this idea that we can act to change what once felt hopeless. DART is a mission created to test the idea of shooting a space rock and hitting it hard enough to deflect it from its path toward Earth. This significant first, happening by coincidence as we celebrate our new year, challenges us to think about how we can change the course of something that seems to have an inevitable trajectory. Because what's at stake is, well, everything. From our planet to our people, we do have the power to change and to make change. What feels inevitable that we might actually be able to change? And how can we use these 10 days and this tool of teshuvah to jumpstart our mission, to change the course of our lives, our country, and maybe, just maybe, our world? Shana Tova.